Race number 1 in NASCAR's version of a playoff, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at New Hampshire. Coverage presented by GoDaddy.com. 10 races, 12 drivers competing for one championship. Right now, Carl Edwards is out in front. He has dominated the first 54 laps of today's race. You see the top 5. Edwards second in points starting the day. The man that was in front of him in the standings, Kyle Busch, still struggling with an ill-handling car. Kyle right now 43rd on the racetrack. Jamie, what's his crew chief saying?
Steve Addington, we're talking about the bolt being broken, but he still isn't making up much ground. What else is going on with the car, Steve?
Well, right now, till we get this fixed, we're going to be pretty much junk. It broke the left side hime on the sway bar. We've never had that happen, but first time for everything here. We're going to work, try to get back up here, hopefully get where we can race them and get some of these laps back.
Being that you've never seen this happen, do you feel there is a way to fix it and gain some more points here?
Oh, yeah, we'll get it fixed. You just need to catch a caution here before we get too many laps down.
All right, guys, a situation this team is not used to being in this year.
Strange things that can happen when you're racing for a championship. For example, Jeff Gordon. Rusty Bradley talked about pit road being such a crucial place for this race. When you lose spots on pit road, it's one thing. When you lose spots because you think somebody else maybe did you wrong, that's another.
Well, take a look at these. See Robbie Gordon get in, kind of hangs the tail out, and Jeff Gordon actually has to back up to get the car out of pit road. And when that happened, he lost about 5 positions. Just like you said, Brad, pit road's going to be a problem today.
Absolutely. Steve Letarte goes over and has a healthy discussion with the Jim Beam Racing team. He says, hey, guys, you got to give us some more room. Get Robbie in that box. Get him squared up. We can't be backing up like this. That cost Jeff valuable time and points.
Jeff's catch can man had to get out of the way before Jeff backed him into the car that was pitted behind them. So Gordon now out there in 12th position, and he is 9.6 seconds behind the leader. Little race for position 5th and 6th. Denny Hamlin, one of the guys that took just 2 tires on the first set of pit stops. Dale Earnhardt Jr., the first guy on the racetrack, along with Clint Boyer, 88 and 07, that took 4 tires on the stop, trying to make up the lost track position because of other strategies.
Well, track position's everything in the world, but I'm watching the lap timers right now, and actually Carl Edwards is outrunning these guys by about 0.2 of a second. So at the moment, it's not paying off.
And Junior going to try and put the slide on Denny Hamlin, and so Junior moves his way up into that number 5 spot. So the guys on 4 tires trying to pick their way back to the front. And right now, Doc keeping an eye on both. Carl Edwards in the lead and Kyle Busch, who's running last.
Alan, if you're Carl Edwards, you got to be smelling blood right now. You know, if you can pedal that car up there and somehow put Kyle Busch another lap down, that is insurance on a racetrack and a car that's been almost unbeatable throughout the regular season of the year.
Oh, yeah, I know he's seeing the back bumper of that 18 just saying, let me get to it. I want to put him another lap down.
Yeah, you can see it on our shot right there. The guy that's in 4th is Kurt Busch. I'm pretty impressed. You know, he won this race earlier, won the race here earlier this year, but it wasn't because he outran the field. They had some good strategies, but he looks like he has a really good car today.
Jimmy Johnson's actually running the fastest lap times, at least the last lap. That track position is so important. You know, those guys that got 4 tires, you would think would be able to zoom up on these guys, but for some reason at this racetrack, you know, just having that clean air seems to make so much more difference than tires.
Jimmy Johnson, one back-to-back coming in. There is the 2 car you were talking about, DJ. Kurt Busch flashing by.
Yeah, we see Jimmy Johnson here getting a lot closer to Carl Edwards. Looks like they were going to have a battle for the lead here in just a matter of laps. Dave?
DJ, there was a telling sign during that first run for the 48. He started out with no rear grip, but through that run, the side bite came back, the grip was returning, and the entry was okay. They only had to make a slight adjustment with that 2-tire change on that last stop. I think he's got a really good race car. Shannon?
Yeah, Dave, right now, Carl Edwards' spotter is telling him that the 48 is faster in the center of 3 and 4, so that right now is where they're seeing Jimmy Johnson beating Carl Edwards on the track. Right now, that car is pretty good for Carl Edwards. He says it's just a little bit tight in the center. Remember, he's on 2 tires, guys.
We can see the 2 drivers running totally different lines here. You see Carl Edwards enter the corner as we go to come down the front stretch. Carl Edwards is going to stay out a little bit wider. Jimmy Johnson's going to carry a little bit more speed into the corner, let his car roll. Carl kind of gets out of the throttle and gets it pointed back across the racetrack out of the corner and carries more speed there. So where Jimmy's beating him, it's in and to the center. Carl Edwards beating him on the exit of the corner.
Watch with our Wrangler telemetry, see if we can see exactly the throttle as Carl Edwards picks it up, and there's Jimmy just right to the rear deck.
And you see how Carl's having to baby that throttle just a little off the corner. Now he's wide open. Car's turning a lot of RPMs, 9,300. Hard on the brakes. Key here is try to get off the brake pedal as soon as possible. Let the car roll through the middle of the corner.
See him working the throttle, and even as he gets up into the corner, out of the corner, you really have to work it. I know it sounds crazy that once you get to the straightaway there almost that you're coming out of the throttle, but you come up on this wall that it flattens out so quickly that most of the times we see Jimmie Johnson trying to make the pass here for the lead, yet you have to come out of the throttle a little bit. And that's where Jimmie is starting to beat him a little bit more down on the very bottom. Carl lets him go now, not going to press the issue.
Jimmie Johnson becomes the 4th different driver to lead at New Hampshire today. There have been 3 lead changes among 4 different drivers. Jimmie Johnson now showing the way. Back in a moment. Tony Stewart easing in on the 48 car. Jimmie Johnson is the leader. Stewart has yet to lead today.
Tony looks like his car really comes on after they've run about 20 laps or so. He may have the best car in a longer run. We typically have some of those longer runs up to, and possibly even green flag pit stops at this racetrack, ain't it?
Yeah, it almost looks like a rematch of last week, you know, the closing laps of the race at Richmond. Here Tony is trying to run down to 48. And looks like Jimmie is running up on the racetrack just a little bit more than Tony.
Tony has not won a race in 2008. His last win coming back in August of 2007 at Watkins Glen. Let's take you up to speed with our chase driver, starting with Jimmie Johnson and Dave.
Guys, last week he did not lead the race until lap 367, getting it done a little bit earlier in terms of getting those 5 bonus points here today. He fights off the same guy he had to fight off at the end of the race last week, and we expect another great battle. Jamie?
Well, Tony Stewart's been really happy with his car all this weekend, but the one thing they were trying to make better is get it to turn better in the corners. Greg Fidelli, his crew chief, told me this morning they were better off when they came to Loudon last time, but he said they just can't get her to turn, so that's what they were working on the last pit stop. 4 tires and actually no adjustments, but the car looking good, Shannon.
Jamie told you guys just a few moments ago, Carl Edwards just a little bit tight in the center. Here's what he had to say on his radio to Bob Osborne, his crew chief.
If I get in, a little snug, you know, tight in, roll on the brakes. Across the center, a little tight, rolling. And right here, when I'm back on the gas, while it's loaded, it's a little tight there, and there's some speed there. It gets a little, you know, freeze up once I get out of the center, and I'm up on exit.
Carl Edwards, definitely a driver who capitalized on the rain out in qualifying. He struggled in practice this week, but of course got to start second based on points. Now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. right now running 5th. He said his car was awesome in practice. Coming into this week, he said he loves the pressure of the chase. The car right now for Dale Earnhardt Jr. just a tiny bit snug. They made a half-pound air pressure adjustment on the last pit stop. As you see him get a little bit loose coming off the turn, they're going to make another air pressure adjustment on the next stop. Jamie?
And behind him, Denny Hamlin started 6th, running 6th right now. I talked to his crew chief this morning, Mike Ford, and you know, Denny Hamlin back a few races ago just said, we don't deserve to be in the chase right now. He was so frustrated, but his crew chief told me after that, we have done nothing but pick up our heads. We communicated as a team. We knew what our problems were. It's all out the window. They finished 3rd every race since then, guys, and they continue to forge ahead. Right behind him, Cliff Boyer in the 07. Now, he started off strong. He was up there battling for the lead, but his grip has gone away. He's loose. He said he's loose in, tight off, and that's what he's struggling with. They made a small air pressure adjustment on that last stop for Cliff Boyer, as his car seems to be about the same. Dave?
Jamie, Greg Biffle's team has done a little extra testing at a track very much like that this week. They didn't think they made any significant gains right away, but Greg Irwin, his crew chief, told me that they poured over the data and applied it here at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. By golly, it worked pretty good, and they've got a good race car. Behind him, the 31 car of Jeff Burton has been tight so far today. They didn't make any changes on that last stop, though, as the car sort of came around to him there at the end. And the 24 of Jeff Gordon, you guys showed it on the screen. The 24 getting blocked in just a bit by the 7. That was their major concern on the last stop. Jeff has picked up 1 position since that restart, but he's going to have to watch it. Hopefully put a little bit shorter and get the 7 to cooperate a little bit more on the next pit stop. Mike?
And it's been a struggle for Kevin Harvick since the drop of the green flag. He fell back immediately, losing 7 positions. He fell as far as 22nd. He's now up to 17th, but the car is just not handling well. He radioed into his crew chief, Todd Barrier, not too long ago and said, we need to figure out what we did since the first practice. This car has not handled well since we unloaded and finished that first practice. Car very loose and was bouncing
run, Matt Kenseth described his car as snappy loose off, and that's not a very good thing. They pulled a spring rubber from the right rear of that car to try to help that situation. Since the restart, Kenseth has tried using the high line just a little bit, but he said, I just can't go up there. I wreck almost every time I try to do that to go a little bit higher on that line. So he's trying to find the best place to run. Jamie?
And Kyle Busch, 43rd right now. It's kind of hard to make up positions when you're 2 laps down. That is tough, especially here at Loudon. Only 5 times in NASCAR history have all 43 cars finished on the lead lap. And right now, if he's sitting 43rd, no other cars drop out, guys, that's exactly where he's going to finish.